Hi Emma, it's Ellie. How are you going? Just to follow up on our consultation from earlier in the week, I've just had a look at everything you needed and I've come up with an advice in order to give you some guidance in relation to what business structure you would like to pursue for your personal training and coaching business. So the elements of the business structure that you require can be met by all three structures in some form. The first one I'll cover will be the proprietary company. It is one of those business structures that does require a bit of startup in terms of funds required and also the steps that you need to take in order to get to the point of where you can trade under that company. So as you're eager to start up the company quite quickly, that's probably the first disadvantage to a proprietary company structure. And the reason for that is that you'd need to undergo a registration process prior to any sort of startup in terms of trading and the things that you choose to do. So firstly, you would need to complete the registration process, which is covered under the Corporations Act. You would need to do that through the Australian Securities and Investments Commission, formerly known as ASIC. So they would require you to go through everything. So that's your details, the business structure, the way things are going to be set up, who the directors will be, who the secretaries will be, an auditor of your choice, which would come in and audit the business at sporadic times, as well as a public officer, so like an accountant and those sorts of things as well. You would also need to ensure that you have a registered office location, so whether that can be your home or it can be an office that you choose to lease under the business, or if you choose to go down the gym route, then you can obviously put the gym details down as well. Alternatively, you can also put the accountant's details there, which is something that a lot of businesses do tend to do. They tend to put the accountant as their registered office if they don't have one per se, so that's also the other option there. You would also need to pay registration fees up front as well, so you would need to be able to have those funds available to do that. You would also then need to continue making ongoing registration payments in order to keep the business registered. The other thing with a proprietary company that's required is you would also need to actually draft a company constitution, which would outline the procedures for meetings with members. Further to that, you would also need, any changes that are made. The members only have the ability, so if you have other people involved that isn't just yourself, you give them the right to vote under the constitution and the setup of a proprietary company. The directors are responsible for the day-to-day management, so that's something that you could put yourself in the position of. However, in terms of other decisions to be made for the company, you would need to put that to a vote in a board meeting, because a board of directors would need to be established, and as well, everyone would sort of need to agree on that prospect. So you do lose a little bit of control when you go into a proprietary company structure. Personally, in my opinion, the best thing for yourself in terms of getting something started quickly, not having as many funds available for startup, would be a sole trader business to commence. The reason I say that is the control of that business then is in your hands. You have the say in all the decisions made for that business. All you would need to do for a sole trader would be to register an Australian business number. You would also then obviously need to register for goods and services tax through the Australian Taxation Office as well. So that's kind of a simple way of doing it. Then from there, you can run the business how you see fit, whether you obviously undergo leasing of somewhere to do your personal training and coaching sessions, or alternatively, you can do it from your home, however you wish to do it. The best thing is that it's all in your control, it's all there. The only issue there is that the liability is solely on yourself. So any assets that you may have in your own name and things that you own and things that belong to yourself, they are all at risk if something was to happen through the business. So whether it be some form of tax debt or whether you have a trade credit agreement with a provider for supplements or equipment and things like that. So if a debt like that gets out of hand, you are personally liable for that. The only way you can sort of protect yourself in some instance is through public liability. So if a client injures themselves or if anything happens to them whilst you're training. Additionally, you can also get personal indemnity, which is very similar. But for more information on insurance policies, obviously you can contact any insurance provider so that they can explain what those are. But in terms of liability itself for the business, you would be personally liable as a sole trader. The difference obviously being with a company is that a company is a separate legal entity. So therefore, the company can own assets, the company can be sued, the company can sue. They're a completely separate entity to yourself. So that is an advantage of a company structure though. The third structure, obviously, we discussed in the meeting, or you mentioned to me would be a possibility for yourself, is a partnership. So a partnership is similar to a sole trader in that it's not a separate legal entity. So the partners themselves would still be responsible for any debts incurred and those sorts of things. So obviously insurance can be another option there. However, you are still personally liable as a partner. The differential there is a partnership agreement would need to be drafted up. So you could obviously have an Australian business number, goods and services tax, and both the partners, if there's multiple partners or just the one partner, they could all be listed within the ABN so that there is more than one person responsible. But the main source of regulation of a partnership would be the partnership agreement or deed that is drafted by your solicitor. So that is something obviously to consider as well. A partnership is good in that what you could do is you could start as a sole trader, build up your client base, continue to build profits and things like that, look at getting a lease potentially for a space for your training. But then if your client base obviously becomes very popular, it can then get quite busy. So a partnership would be a good secondary option in that sense, because then that way you could bring on another partner or another trainer or another coach or another fitness professional that you could go into business with under that agreement, whereby you are both responsible for the business. So that is another option. Like I said though, however, it is very similar to the sole trader. Liability is obviously a big thing for you. So I want you to be able to, I guess, have the understanding of all of those structures whereby liability is a big thing and can change depending on the structure. Limited liability for yourself as an individual, you would be best going with a company structure. However, like I said, it does take a bit of startup cost as well as quite a bit of other procedural steps that you would need to take in order to get that up and running. So that is something to consider. In terms of what you're after, like I said, to establish your business, you can use all three structures in this instance. The purposes of my advice is just to provide you with an understanding of the differential between each of those three structures, and then you can then make that informed decision as to how you wish to proceed with that. So immediately, I guess what I could tell you is that there's always an opportunity for growth as well. So you can start out with a sole trader structure and potentially move to a partnership if things are going well and you kind of want to bring somebody else into that space. Or alternatively, if things are going amazingly and you decide you wanted to step up and expand and do a bit more with the business, you can then obviously, when you've got a bit more funds available, if the business is going well, proceed to that proprietary company option. So there are a lot of things that you can do. So I hope my advice has been significantly helpful for you. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out. I'm more than happy to help you with anything that you might have or any questions. You know, it's the same as if you decide to go with a partnership or proprietary company, I can definitely guide you in those directions. So please reach out if you need anything. And thank you so much for coming to the firm. We really appreciate it.